Greetings, all you pirates and marines out there. It's Duuz-Diz-Din coming at you with another One Piece review. This time, it's One Piece, Chapter 927, titled O-Toko the Kamuro, which is, in very simple terms, a young girl who is training to be a prostitute, more or less. Coming up to be a geisha or corazon, something along those lines. In certain cases, if I remember correctly, it's sometimes it's young girls who are sold off by their families in order to repay a debt, if I'm thinking about it correctly. But, in certain cases, that's what it is, I believe. But this is more of a side story, just seeing what's going on in the capital city with those who have infiltrated it, namely the various members of the Straw Hat Pirates, namely Usopp, Frankie, Robin, and Sanji, who are all dining on Sanji's delicious cooking, as he has gathered a massive line of women who enjoy his soba noodles. Frankie points out the fact that they were trying to gain male customers, specifically samurai, much to the dismay of Sanji himself. However, we see various members of the Kyoshiro clan come in to try to kind of more or less get a cut of Sanji's action, because it's very obvious he's been earning a great wealth from this business. I don't know if these people are from the shadowy figure we saw in the previous chapter observing Sanji, but more than likely they are, as this kind of brings things into motion, as they kind of try to shake down Sanji, more or less, start destroying a lot of his, wares, smacking down the food and all this stuff. And Frankie promptly points out, it's just like, or even both Frankie and Usopp point out, it's just like, yeah, Sanji's about to lose his crap over them wasting food. But Robin specifically notes the fact that these are members of Kyoshiro, who is the bookkeeper for Orochi, basically the guy who gets who deals with a lot of Orochi's money and stuff like that. So it's very much like a Yakuza operation he has going here. But that's regardless, as Sanji and Frankly, quickly pummel these guys. There's a lot of guys from Wano who are not like big members of Kaido's crew, have more or less been fodder. And, Sanji promptly plants one dude's face right into the ground with his foot. And it's like the ground is sprouting out someone's head, and even Frankie suplexes a dude. So it's just like they make quick work of these guys. And Sanji even goes so far as to force feed the one guy who spilled the soba. But, unfortunately everyone pretty much clears out because of the ruckus. This is all except for one girl named Toko, who was really just waiting to get a taste of Sanji's soba and is overjoyed. But, something to make note of is, when she had the bowl that she originally got smacked out of her hands by the thugs, she had a smile on her face the entire time, despite the fact that she was crying. And she just seems to have this perpetual smile on her face, which just kind of makes everybody else just laugh, like they just have this joyous feeling being around her. So, including, that makes another, young girl who is just kind of befriended the Straw Hat Pirates to a certain degree. So there's this running theme of the Straw Hats kind of, influencing the next generation more or less. And that's something that we never really saw in One Piece too much, the Straw Hats interacting with children, except for if you watch the anime, because this happened a multitude of times in the anime, but never so much in the manga. They don't really hang out with kids that often, except from, I think, what was her name? A Piece? No, something else. The young girl from Sky Island who had the observation hockey, as we found out. She had great observational skills. But aside from that, and even then, they didn't really hang out with her too much. But here we're seeing them gain real bonds with these young children. Oh, Punk Hazard. I forgot all about Punk Hazard because so many of those kids were, altered in size. But, the Straw Hats have a great time just talking to this girl. She makes a joke about the fact that, the common O in front of people's names used in front of her name makes it O-Toko, which is the Japanese word for man. And she jokes about it, just like, but I'm a girl, haha. And, everybody just has a really fun time with this young girl. And she points out that she's in training to be a courtesan, it's her goal, and she's actually has a job with it and all that, and she runs off because she's late to go meet up with the procession, because there's, as we come to find out, the courtesan, in this country, despite the fact that courtesan in Japanese is like a really, really high profile Japanese prostitute. Like in ancient times, like she was the big seller. You had to have mad money to have her. And it got to the point where a lot of people, the geisha business ended up becoming a bigger thing because of that, because they were a little bit on the cheaper side. They were still high money, but, they were a little bit more cheaper. And we even have Robin's master, who we had seen, getting her in training to be a geisha, doing the dances and playing on the shamisen and all that. She just jumps in, having wanted to, find Robin, because apparently Robin has been said to be going to, asked to come to the capital. She was requested, so Robin's moving up, and she'll be able to infiltrate and get a lot more information here. But no real talk of prostitution goes on here, mainly because ultimately that wouldn't be the greatest thing in a series like that. I could never see them going that far, but they treat it more like the Corazon is just like a superstar, basically. People just marvel at her beauty, more or less, and that's about the extent of it. Like a high-class model, more or less. And, and so we kind of get this segue into the Corazon, in the fact that she's walking down a street. She's extremely tall, too. Like, she just towers above everyone else. And, she meets up with Toko, who, she seems to have this very affectionate nature with, and is very kind. And, it's one of those situations very much like Boa Hancock and Shirahoshi, where it's just like, oh, her beauty is blinding. Avert your eyes lest you go blind. And you have people who have broken out into fights over her and have fainted from blood loss, just, nosebleeds and all this. And then we switch over to the actual capitals, each district, where we see Kyoshiro's, who is being talked to by one of the men from before, and he says, hey, just have I got this thing with the banquet. I'm not missing that for the world. Just have Queen send out one of his assassins and just be done with it. Despite the fact that they're going to cause a huge scene. So, naturally, it's the Straw Hat Pirates. Luffy is the most inconspicuous one out of the bunch, but, the Straw Hat Pirates themselves will cause a ruckus if push comes to shove. And we end our chapter with the reveal, or at least kind of reveal, of Orochi in silhouette, saying that the Corazon Kamuro Komurasaki, there we go, that's the name, will be his. So I guess he's trying to make her his personal woman, which, in the legend of Orochi, he had a multitude of sacrifices, and on the eighth sacrifice, you had the hero Susanoo, who came in to slay the Orochi, the eight-headed beast, and when he tried to cut through its tail, he found this legendary sword, and so on and so forth. So I'm questioning how much of that legend is actually going to play a part in this overall storyline. But, it's interesting to actually see a bit of a silhouette for Orochi. He has this design very much like a traditional Japanese kind of silhouetted, darkened in design for a dragon, very commonplace. But he does have a multitude of heads like a hydra. So whether this will be a devil fruit or it'll actually, be like the Orochi no Mi, or the Hydra fruit, maybe, tying in Greek mythology with Japanese mythology, because a lot of mythical creatures kind of intersect in certain ways. But Orochi truly does have some form of devil fruit, be it artificial or otherwise. And the fact that he's going after the courtesan, will definitely have some kind of side love story, maybe, because Oda has shown that he's willing to kind of dive into it here and there. Although who will be the one to ultimately take down Orochi? It has to be at least Kinemon, maybe. He might go after Kinemon's wife, so, that might bring them into blows, and that might be Kinemon's fight, where he brings in Raizo and Kanjiro, and they go on after Orochi, because, ultimately Orochi's the one who usurped the throne that should have rightfully been Momosuke's. So, a lot of setup. It wasn't the best chapter out there, but it was a good chapter because we're just moving along with the story. Nothing feels like we're repeating everything or it's a pointless chapter. It's nothing but info moving forward, setup. Here's what you need to know. Just keep it moving, keep it moving. And that's how the past few chapters have been. Oda really seems to be enjoying what he's doing here, because there's no padding or anything like that. It's just move it forward, set up, because we're setting up a whole confrontation with Straw Hat Pirates and the forces of Queen. So we'll see higher ranking officers in terms of Kaido's forces, who will hopefully this time around not be a bunch of scrubs like the headliners, a lot of the headliners have been. Because aside from X-Drake or Basil Hawkins, a lot of the headliners have been jokes. Sheep's Head, Hold'em, the hippo dude, well, I don't even remember what his name was at this point because he was dealt with so quickly. A lot of those guys have just been nothing. So it's just like, but Hawkins was a real threat. And X-Drake, he's definitely going to be a real threat because he's supposed to be at least on par with them. Not to mention a lot of the supernovas, if Rogue's role has anything to be shown, is like they're at least as powerful as the commanders in the various Yonko's crews. Like, head-to-head, toe-to-toe, they can go with those top-class dudes. Take out the actual Yonko, though, that's a no-go. That's not gonna happen unless you get like a whole bunch of backup. But jeez, I just went off on this massive tangent. I'm so sorry. But that's the end of the chapter. Tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. Did you enjoy this chapter? Did you feel like we got a lot of necessary information that we'll need going forward? Or do you think it was skippable? And if you liked what I had to say here, leave me a like. Or if you didn't like what I had to say, leave me a dislike and tell me what I'm doing wrong or what I might have said wrong, so I might improve for future videos. But I want to say thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you stopping by, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.